Welcome back to the Philly Special, bunch of guys who like to talk about Philadelphia sports. This episode is sponsored by Meow Mix. Tastes so good, cats ask for it by name. So let's start off by talking about the opening night between the 76ers versus the Celtics. To say for the least, it was very disappointing on the 76ers end to see what they put out. We were expecting some big numbers, which we received from Joel Embiid, and Ben Simmons had a great show out too, along with JJ Redick. However, it wasn't nearly enough to topple the current favorites of the East. The final score ended up being 105 Celtics to 87 76ers. But we're looking at a little bit different numbers in opening night. So opening night, it started out, the Celtics dominated the first quarter. However, at the end, they were making a lot of crucial mistakes. And it ended up tying, I believe, 21-21 at the end of the first. Now, to get the first points of the game, that was a very disgusting act to begin with. There was a lot of turnovers on both sides of the team before we finally got a score from Joel Embiid. But let's talk about the stats first. So we have Joel Embiid, and he put out 23 points along with 10 rebounds. We have Ben Simmons, who had 19 points, I believe 15 rebounds, and 8 assists. So he almost had a triple-double on the first night of the season. Now that's crazy. JJ Redick with 16 points, as we said, and then we had Markelle Fultz with only 5 points. And Markelle Fultz, he's been working on his jump shot recently, at least over the summer. That's what video came out and showed. However, it didn't show up tonight, and he looked very not confident in his shot. On the other side of it, we also had on the Celtics, Kyrie Irving, who was also not confident tonight. Kyrie Irving went 2 for 14 shooting. Only ended up with about 7 points. But the Celtics were mainly dominated with Jason Tatum. Jason Tatum came out with 23 points. He had 16 boards. Al Horford only had 9 points, but he's such a big presence. Defensively, he had 5 blocks. We had Terry Rozier with 12 points, but coming off the bench was Marcus Morris with 16 points. A big play coming out of out of the 76ers Celtics night was Jaylen Brown. Now, there was a lot of controversy about whether his dunk on Joel Embiid was actually a dunk and counted as a poster or not. I'm not entirely sure. What do you think about Jaylen Brown? Do you count it as a dunk on Joel Embiid or what? I mean, it banged off the backboard. How do you feel?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, it did bank off the backboard, but I give him credit. Anytime you can throw it down, be it a layup like that, almost a dunk layup, or an actual dunk, anytime you can throw it down against Joel Embiid, I'll give you credit for that. That's pretty impressive.
Yeah, Joel Embiid, he's a big monster defensive presence. He's definitely a future MVP, and he's putting up some big numbers starting out this year. He was a big defensive presence and offensive presence last year, and I'm glad to see we're going to see how he grows into it. So, again, the final score was 105 to 87. So the 76ers have a lot of improving to do over to the next game tonight, I believe, actually. So how do you think the 76ers can improve going forward in this season?
Well, one of the big numbers that really sticks out to me is, as a team, the 76ers shot 87 field goals, only made 34 of them. Their team field goal percentage was .391, and again, they shot 26 threes, only made 5. So the shooting and the scoring for the 76ers has to get better for them from tonight going forward. Another thing that does not look good is the free throw percentage. Ben Simmons was only 5 for 11 free throw shooting. Besides that, he and Embiid were the only ones that had more than, I guess Amir Johnson had 4, but those 3 were the only ones that had more than 2 free throws. But as a team, they only shot just over 50% from the free throw line. So those aren't the numbers you want to see going forward. And in order to get better, they're going to need to definitely improve upon that.
Definitely. The 76ers, like you said, only shooting 39% field goal percentage. Now that's very low. We had some big numbers put out tonight, but that is not a big one. I'd say around 45-50% is typically where you want to be. Maybe even higher than that. Jason Tatum came out with about 53%. That was really solid on his part. Terry was 50%. But it's very funny that you actually mentioned Amir Johnson, because Amir Johnson was actually a future Celtic, a past Celtic.
Yes.
So moving forward, that was the opening night recap of the 76ers versus the Celtics. So let's talk about everybody's opening night in general. So we have Anthony Davis from the Pelicans coming out, winning against the Rockets 131-112. Anthony Davis himself had 32 points, 16 rebounds, and 8 assists. That means he almost had a triple-double coming out, a 32-point triple-double. These are some big numbers. On the other side, we have Kawhi Leonard, only winning against the Cavs by 12. He had 24 points, 13 boards. Giannis Antetokounmpo, he had 25 points, 18 rebounds, and 8 assists, only winning by 1 to the Hornets. Now, the Hornets are very special this year, led by Kemba Walker. Kemba Walker, he was very impressive in his fight against the Bucks. He came out shooting 15 of 29. He had 7 three-pointers, made 4 of 5 on his free throws. But Kemba Walker came out and he scored a game-high of 41 points in 39 minutes. That was insane coming out, and that's a great show. I really hope he can improve as a team, the Hornets as well. We'll see how it goes from there. So let's move forward. Blake Griffin, he had 26 points and 8 rebounds with 6 assists, winning the Detroit Pistons won 103-100 against the Nets. Aaron Gordon, 26 points, 16 rebounds, 104-101 against the Heat. And LaMarcus Aldridge, actually. He came out 21 points, 19 rebounds. We had Rudy Gobert, 22 points, 15 rebounds. We're just throwing a lot of stats out right now. But these are some big numbers I'm putting up. I mean, 15 rebounds, 18 rebounds here and there. That's a lot of rebounds coming out. How important do you think the rebound game is in today's NBA? Like we talked about last time in this podcast, we talked about how important the three-point percentage is and the three-pointer is. How important do you think grabbing the rebound, just in case you do miss the ball, is?
Yeah, I think rebounding is always definitely going to be a foundation of the game. One thing that I did notice that the 76ers got into a little bit of trouble in the game against the Celtics was allowing offensive rebounds, and it seemed like there was just too many second chance points going in for the Celtics, because they're a team that'll really capitalize on that. If they get an extra shot, they'll make sure that they can do something with it. And there's not much of a presence down low for the 76ers besides Joel Embiid. And that's something, again, that they're probably going to want to look forward and get better at, rebounding the ball, because you see teams who have good rebounders, they get a lot of second chance points and they don't allow a lot of second chance points. So that's definitely makes a big difference, and that's something that the 76ers at the moment do not have besides Joel Embiid.
Entirely. So finishing up the stats of opening night, we had Devin Booker with 35 points and 7 assists. He made 6 three-pointers. That was against the Mavericks. They won 121-100 against the Mavericks. We have, let's see here. We have Victor Oladipo. He only had 16 points, but that's still a great contribution to the team. But if we're talking about a contribution to the team, let's talk about Tim Hardaway Jr. 31 points, 6 rebounds, and 5 assists. That's big numbers for the Knicks coming off without Kristaps Porzingis. Don't know when he's coming back exactly, but I'm glad Tim Hardaway is holding it down for him until he gets back. So, moving forward, you talked about how the 76ers don't have big paint presence besides Joel Embiid. So, I'm hearing a lot of trade rumors about Markelle Fultz. So, Markelle Fultz, he was drafted last year, 2 years ago now, by the 76ers, first overall pick. and they were drafting him because of his ability to shoot the ball from behind the arc. He shot 38% in his lone season at the University of Washington. These numbers are coming from Sir Charles and Charge.com. And Fultz shooting gave Philadelphia an opportunity to help prevent the opposing team from collapsing. Because Joel Embiid and Ben Simmons are such a huge paint presence when offensively. But last year, in his rookie season, Markelle Fultz really did not do very well. I guess I don't know if it was rookie season actually, but Markelle Fultz shot 0% from the three-point line coming out of college. So, and he's been working on his jumper, but that's not too hot. And after watching this first game with the 76ers, also wasn't hot numbers. So, do you think the 76ers should think about trading Markelle? How do you feel about this?
I think it's definitely an option for them. They have some guys that can play that point guard position, including Ben Simmons, who's really taken control of that. And I think for the 76ers, the need for another big man presence down low is just too great to decide right away that they have to keep Fultz. They don't want him on the trade block. Two guys that come to mind that are playing for teams that aren't as good, the Heat with Hassan Whiteside and the Pistons with Andre Drummond. Those are two guys that are rebounding and defensive machines. They're not guys that would be critical in the offensive game for the 76ers. They're not bad offensive players, but they're definitely their focus is defense and rebounding. And I think if the 76ers later on in the season, coming towards the trade deadline, can sort of look at those options maybe, even if it does include Markelle Fultz. I don't know if I would trade any other big trade piece besides Fultz. I wouldn't trade Embiid or Simmons for either of those guys for sure, but if either of those teams will give up their center for Markelle Fultz, I think the 76ers at least have to take a look at it.
That'd be a big move as well, because it's kind of an unspoken rule in the NBA where you never really see a big man traded for a little man. But if the 76ers could somehow pull off that trade, how phenomenal would the 76ers actually be? Fultz isn't really offering anything offensively nor defensively right now, and giving Joel Embiid a little bit more slack and letting him focus on his game instead of having to be the horse on both ends would be really big. And I couldn't imagine actually seeing Hassan Whiteside or Andre Drummond on the 76ers. That'd be crazy. That'd be amazing to see. Going off the track a little bit, I'm seeing a lot of rumors also about Kawhi Leonard. He might actually re-sign with the Raptors. There's a lot of talk going around previously about how Kawhi was going to the Lakers next season because in free agency, him and LeBron could run up the Lakers and could actually compete with Golden State. But I'm seeing some talk about Kawhi getting re-signed with the Raptors. That's some pretty big news, and it seems like he enjoyed his time. He enjoys his time with Toronto, and it's crazy to see. But could you imagine Toronto or Kawhi staying in Toronto? That'd be pretty big news.
That would be big. Yeah, Kawhi. It was no secret this past offseason that he was interested in playing in Los Angeles. It's where he's from. It's where he wanted to be. But yeah, after seeing that he might stay in Toronto past 2019 is pretty big, and it'll just make the Raptors another opponent in the East for the 76ers to have to keep up with if, say, they re-sign Kawhi Leonard and get one more. Even if they don't get another piece, but if they get one more piece, that'll make them very dangerous. And the Raptors have a chance at competing for the East this year, I think. And if Kawhi can stay and they can develop their players a little more, or they can get another big name, then it's daunting for the 76ers if they can't do anything. So, yeah, the Raptors, this news could just make the Raptors another team that they've got to compete with and try to beat in the East.
And the 76ers, from that viewpoint, if Kawhi actually ends up staying with Toronto in the East, that sounds like trouble for the 76ers, because the 76ers, after looking at what happened opening night, obviously it's the first game of the season, they're still working out kinks, yada, yada, yada. But they're competing with some big names. They got Giannis Antetokounmpo from the Bucks. They have the Celtics, obviously, with their dream team going on right now, and their future is bright. Toronto with Kawhi, and that was a great show off here. Charlotte actually showing up. I wonder how, we talked about it last podcast as well, but I wonder how the Wizards are going to do. But let's go back to the Lakers. So we talked about Kawhi possibly going to the Lakers, possibly staying with Toronto. One name that's going around who LeBron from the Lakers wants to play with is Damian Lillard off the Trailblazers. That was rough. So LeBron, it's no secret that LeBron wants to play with Damian. He's talking about it the entire time. But there's another trade rumor possibly that Lonzo Ball would be the centerpiece of the trade for Damian Lillard. Now, how do you feel about Lonzo for Damian, or maybe possibly a few more picks in there?
Yeah, I could see that being a good trade for the Lakers to make. Depending on what else the Lakers are willing to throw in for that trade, I'm not sure. From a Trailblazers perspective, whether I would want to take that or not. Lonzo, he didn't have a bad season. He didn't have as great a season as people imagined him having last year. So until he either proves himself to have that ceiling that everybody thought he had, or to have that talent, I think I would stay away from making that trade from a Trailblazers perspective unless the Lakers are able to part with maybe another piece or a few draft picks or something. But as from a Lakers perspective, that would be an excellent trade in my opinion.
Entirely. And who knows, maybe the young ones from Los Angeles are gonna have breakout years. You have Lonzo, maybe he'll have a breakout year, or obviously maybe you can have a repeat. I'm looking actually at Kyle Kuzma. I think that kid has talent, honestly. I think he has a lot of hidden talent. I mean, there's some potential going on here. And speaking of Kuzma, he actually just signed with GOAT. Did you see that actually?
I did not see that.
No, so GOAT is a company that takes old shoes and they revamp them and sell them. So I think it's a genius move on Kyle Kuzma's part. So instead of signing yourself with one brand, saying Nike or Adidas or yada yada yada, and having to wear their shoes, he signed with GOAT, and he can wear anybody's shoes. Obviously, I think he has something going on with Nike, so he's still wearing Nikes, but he's just getting vintage retro Nikes, and he just has to wear them. That's genius on from my point. But so let's see here. Here's a fun topic. Let's talk about the way too soon MVP predictions. So, in my opinion, I believe that this MVP is either coming down to Anthony Davis or Giannis, because these are two big names. They're putting up big numbers. I think Giannis is personally in the next couple of years winning MVP regardless. But
yeah, those two are definitely in the mix. I would say James Harden too, and Russell Westbrook are two other guys that the last two MVP winners. I don't see them going away anytime soon. So those are two other guys that are going to be big in the mix, I think.
How do you feel about Jimmy Butler with his recent feels?
Yeah.
Do you want to talk about Jimmy Butler real quick?
Yeah, we can for a second. Yeah, Jimmy Butler. Clearly not as happy as he could be playing for the Timberwolves. I think he requested a trade, and then also, did he say that? Was he the one that was saying that the Timberwolves need him to win?
Yeah, Jimmy Butler. So recently at practice, he played with the third string against the starters, and he was trying to prove himself, and he ended up winning that battle with the third string. And he went to the head coach, and he was like, "You effing need me, and you can't win without me." And it was some big words. He was obviously heated, but he was emotional about it. He's the kind of guy that he makes a big presence on the court just because he's so invested in the game. I think he actually has a little bit of Draymond Green in him. Draymond likes to play the mental game. I think Jimmy Butler plays the mental game very well as well.
Yeah, I mean, he's definitely a big presence on the court for any team. But I don't know. I don't see anything happening with that soon. Maybe again towards like later in the season when we get to that deadline. But for the time being, I think he'll be playing with the Minnesota Timberwolves.
Yeah, and who knows, maybe the 76ers can actually make something up and get Jimmy Butler in here, maybe for Markelle. I don't know. Finally, let's wrap it up with the 76ers' upcoming schedule. Do you have that?
I've got that up, yeah.
Okay, cool.
So tonight, right now, actually, in fact, they're playing against the Chicago Bulls. They are currently down 38 to 35. Correction, 39 to 35. Free throw was just made, but the Bulls, and after that they have the Magic, the Pistons, the Bucks, the Hornets, and the Hawks. And I think definitely they started off against a very tough opponent, but if you're looking at who they're playing coming up, it's just these are games I think they need to capitalize on, especially Chicago, Orlando, Detroit, Charlotte, Atlanta. These are teams that, to be frank, aren't that good, and the 76ers definitely need to capitalize early to get that momentum going for the rest of the season.
And currently, these are actually some big numbers. If you think about it, we're only in the first quarter. There's only 2 minutes left, and the number it's 39 to 35. These are some big numbers. I mean, the first quarter ended with the Boston game opening night was 21-21. So
Yeah.
that's almost double it.
So it looks so far like they've been making those
Improvements.
the offensive improvements we were talking about. So yeah, that's definitely good to see. Even after just a one game thing, that the 76ers are already making these improvements, and I think that'll only help them as the season goes along. The question I think now becomes defense and rebounding, and can they get past Joel Embiid basically carrying them on that end of the court? So I think that becomes the question at this point.
Yeah, and hopefully these questions can be answered in the future. That's all we have for you here at the Philly Special. Thank you for tuning in, and we'll talk to you next time.